fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, the dairy industry's most provocative and influential voice. If you're tired of the same old industry cheerleading and want the unvarnished truth about what's really happening in dairy, you've come to the right place. Today we're diving into something the industry absolutely doesn't want you to hear: the brutal reality of dairy's labor crisis and why everything you think you know about solving it is wrong. While everyone else is playing the same tired game of just hire more workers, smart operators are quietly using this crisis to eliminate their competition and dominate market share. We're talking about a $32 billion elephant in the room that could reshape which farms survive and which become cautionary tales by 2030. If you think this is just another temporary staffing problem that higher wages will fix, you're about to discover why that thinking will put you out of business. This isn't your typical feel-good industry content. We're going to challenge some sacred cows, expose some uncomfortable truths, and show you exactly how the farms that will dominate the next decade are already positioning themselves while their competitors chase workers who simply don't exist. So buckle up. This is the Bullvine, where we don't just report the news, we reveal what the industry doesn't want you to know.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we really get into the weeds, take apart your key sources, and hand you back the absolute must-know insights. You know, the stuff that really arms you with critical knowledge.
Exactly. No fluff, just the core information you need.
And today, we're diving headfirst into something big. A crisis that, well, for a lot of folks, it's been kind of hiding in plain sight, but it's directly impacting every single one of you listening who's involved in the North American dairy industry.
It's a huge topic, and it's moving fast.
It really is. Our main source, our guide for this deep dive, is a really crucial article from the Bullvine. It's titled, Dairy's Labor Crisis: Automate or Perish. Pretty stark title.
Doesn't pull any punches, does it?
Not at all. And our mission here is crystal clear. We want to cut through all the noise surrounding this, grab the absolute gold from this comprehensive piece. We're talking insights that reveal not just, a problem, but a profound, almost seismic transformation that's happening in dairy right now.
And it demands attention, immediate attention, really, and some decisive action.
Yeah, this isn't just about trying to survive the next few years. The article argues it's about seizing a massive, maybe unparalleled opportunity.
Right.
So the Bullseye article kicks things off with this really bold, almost jarring claim. Right now, as we're talking, there are more than 5,000 dairy jobs just sitting empty across North America, unfilled.
5,000, that's a significant number.
It is. But here's the kicker, the part that really makes this different from just, the usual complaints about finding good help. The article insists this isn't just another labor shortage that you can fix by, say, throwing more money at it or just waiting for the market to sort itself out.
No, it's framing it as something much deeper.
Exactly. It's saying this isn't some temporary hiccup. It's a fundamental transformation of the industry's very DNA. The article really hammers this point home.
And it makes a pretty provocative comparison.
It does. It suggests this crisis is creating the biggest opportunity for a strategic advantage since the introduction of artificial insemination. Yeah. AI.
Wow, that's a statement. AI completely reshaped everything: breeding, genetics, how herds were managed.
For decades. And the Bullvine is arguing this labor crisis is that impactful. It's a game changer on that scale.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is how the Bullvine article immediately frames this whole situation. It's presented as a real make-or-break moment for every dairy operation out there.
Right. It doesn't waste time.
No. It doesn't ask if your farm will be affected by this huge shift in workforce dynamics, because it basically states emphatically that it will, no question.
So it forces a choice.
It forces you, the listener, to confront this central, kind of uncomfortable question in this landscape that's shifting under our feet. Are you going to be the predator? Agile enough to actually seize this opportunity for strategic advantage?
Or the alternative.
Or will you, unfortunately, become the prey? Sidelined, maybe eventually overtaken by forces you either didn't see coming or maybe just didn't prepare for adequately.
It's a stark choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Laid bare by the data and analysis they present.
Absolutely. And the message seems to be that the window for just sitting back and watching, it's closing fast.
Okay, so let's really unpack this first part. Because, like you said, the Bullvine Report doesn't just say, hey, there's a labor problem. It declares it a fundamental transformation.
Right. That specific wording is key. Transformation.
And it's not just, fancy words or an attention-grabbing headline. The article actually predicts that by 2030, that's not far off, this growing, persistent number of unfilled dairy jobs will literally reshape which farms survive.
And which ones don't.
And which ones, tragically, are forced to close their doors. Forever.
6 years. Think about that time frame.
Exactly. 6 short years from now, the whole map of North American dairy farming could look dramatically different. And it won't just be reshaped by milk prices or commodity markets, the usual suspects.
No, this is about labor response.
It's about how individual farms respond, or maybe fail to respond, to this massive labor challenge. The article is clear. This isn't some temporary blip on the radar.
No, it's deep-seated, already happening.
It's already in motion right now, actively deciding which operations are going to dominate the next decade.
And which ones become, cautionary tales.
Cautionary tales we look back on, maybe with a bit of sadness. The Bullvine article is pretty unequivocal on this. It says the farms that are strategically positioning themselves now, they aren't just hoping to survive this.
They're using it.
They are actively, aggressively using this crisis as their decisive competitive weapon. That's a powerful statement. And frankly, maybe a little chilling if you're not already engaged with this reality.
That's precisely the core insight the article wants us to really grasp, I think. Farms positioning themselves today, they're not just treading water, hoping to ride out the storm.
No, they see opportunity in the disruption.
Exactly. They're proactively leveraging this crisis to get a distinct competitive edge. They see the disruption not as, some insurmountable wall, but as a catalyst for strategic reinvention.
So the question isn't if.
Right. The question, as the Bullvine analysis makes incredibly clear, isn't if your farm will be affected by this huge shift in labor dynamics, because it will be, almost certainly. The crucial part is how effectively, how proactively you choose to respond.
It demands action.
It demands active, forward thinking, and probably some uncomfortable strategic countermeasures. It's about being deliberate, not just reactive.
And speaking of responses, the Bullvine article, it really doesn't pull any punches when it tackles a common strategy, one that maybe too many producers are still kind of clinging to.
The hire more people approach.
Yeah. It gets right to the heart of it, saying we need to, and I'm quoting here, destroy the most dangerous dairy myth, which is this pervasive idea that the labor shortage is just temporary, cyclical thing.
And that you can fix it with traditional recruitment.
Right, like just hiring more folks or, waiting for immigration policy to magically fix everything. The data they present on this is, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it really underscores why that traditional strategy is, frankly, already dead.
A zombie strategy, draining resources.
Pretty much. The Bullvine's brutal employment reality data, looking at 2024, 2025, it really lays bare just how deep and persistent this problem is.
Like the employment decline.
Exactly. They point to a measurable 3.4% decline in farm employment just between March 2024 and April 2025. Now, that might not sound huge in isolation, but
it adds up.
It implies a steady, continuous shrinking of the overall available workforce for agriculture. If you're consistently losing more workers than you're gaining, and the whole pool is shrinking year after year,
that's a losing battle for traditional hiring.
It's a clear signal you're fighting an uphill battle against some fundamental demographic shifts, changing worker preferences. It's not a short-term trend, it's more like a demographic imperative.
And the money side of this.
Wow.
The financial implications of this tightening labor market are just staggering, as the Bullvine report highlights so carefully.
The $53 billion figure.
Yeah. Agricultural labor costs are projected to exceed a mind-boggling $53 billion in 2025.
Yeah.
Think about the sheer scale of that cost.
It's enormous.
It's a massive, continuously growing outflow of capital from the industry. And it's only going to get worse, more punitive, if the labor supply keeps tightening like they predict.
It's not just finding people anymore.
No. It's about the ever-increasing kind of disproportionate price tag attached to those people. A price tag that just relentlessly chips away at your already thin profit margins.
And what's maybe even more critical to get from the Bullvine's analysis is this huge dependency, almost existential, really.
On the immigrant workforce.
Absolutely. Their data shows a staggering 51%, half of all dairy workers are immigrants. This isn't some small group on the edges.
No, it's central.
As the article points out, this is the very backbone of the industry's operational capacity. And get this, an astonishing 79% of U.S. milk production comes directly from farms staffed by immigrants.
79%. Wow.
So if we step back, connect the dots, it reveals that the vast majority of our domestic milk supply, the stuff in every grocery store on every table, is intrinsically overwhelmingly linked to this specific group.
So any disruption is huge.
Any significant disruption to this workforce, whether it's just an immigration policy, changes at the border, other geopolitical stuff, it has a direct, immediate, and potentially catastrophic impact on milk availability, farm viability, and, ultimately on what consumers pay.
And we're actually seeing these shifts happening now,
Yeah.
right? The Bullvine article points out those geographic production changes.
Yeah, the tectonic plates are definitely moving. It's fascinating. Kansas seeing a big jump, 15.7% increase in milk production. Texas up 8.9%.
While California is down.
Right. California, the traditional powerhouse, historically number one, is actually down 1.8%.
So what does that tell us, this geographic reshuffling?
Well, it strongly suggests that the area is better at managing or, mitigating these big labor challenges. Maybe they have different operational models, maybe a friendlier regulatory environment. Maybe they're adopting automation faster.
They're finding ways to grow.
They're finding pathways to resilience and growth while others are struggling, contracting. It's like a literal remapping of America's dairyland, and it's being driven by these labor pressures.
And then there's that really uncomfortable data point, almost embarrassing, really.
The 2011 program.
Yeah, the one that really drives home the point about domestic workers in these jobs. The Bullvine recounts this telling program from 2011. It was designed to offer 6,500 agricultural jobs specifically to domestic workers.
And the result was underwhelming.
Stark is the word the article used. Only 268 applications came in for those 6,500 jobs. And wait for it, a mere 7 people actually stayed for the whole season.
7 out of 6,500 offered. Wow.
That's a 0.1% retention rate, which, as the article points out with a touch of dark humor, is worse than your most problematic cow's conception rate.
Ouch. But it makes the point.
It really raises that uncomfortable but critical question. If domestic workers clearly won't take these demanding jobs at current wages, and if, like the Bullvine details, immigration policy stays hostile, or at best, uncertain for ag labor, what is your plan B?
Relying on a workforce strategy that just hasn't worked.
It's a recipe for disaster, right? For operational disaster, maybe even an existential threat.
Which leads right into what the Bullvine calls the house of cards.
Exactly. With 51% of the workforce being immigrant labor, producing 79% of our milk, and a big chunk of those workers, unfortunately, being undocumented.
It's precarious.
The Bullvine explicitly warns this isn't a sustainable long-term workforce strategy. It's, and this is a direct quote, a house of cards built on political quicksand.
That's a powerful image.
It means you're basically operating your entire business on a foundation that could get swept away. But unpredictable policy shifts, maybe more enforcement, sudden geopolitical tremors, any moment, leaving you totally exposed with no backup.
That's a really critical, though, uncomfortable insight. The Bullvine's analysis hammers home.
Yeah.
If you really look at their data, relying on a workforce with that degree of policy uncertainty isn't just a risk you manage.
It's deeper than that.
It's a fundamental systemic vulnerability, that political quicksand metaphor. It perfectly describes how precarious it is when a huge, essential part of your labor force operates without full legal status or with legal rules constantly changing.
It's not stable.
This kind of deep dependency just isn't a viable long-term solution for a stable industry. It's like an economic ticking time bomb for every farm, every processor, every consumer in the whole supply chain. It introduces a level of operational instability that, honestly, no sound business plan can reliably account for or mitigate without some proactive change.
And here's another layer to this whole thing. This isn't just a North American problem. The Bullvine article gives us this truly global perspective on the labor catastrophe.
Yeah, showing how widespread, how systemic this is across major dairy nations.
We are definitely not alone in this dilemma.
No, the Bovines Global Dairy Labor Catastrophe data for 2024-2025 provides a pretty sobering comparison across borders. Look at the European Union, for instance.
The aging farmer population.
Yeah, a shocking stat. Only 12% of their farmers are under 40. And the article directly links this alarming demographic to a 1.8% drop in milk production in Q1 2025.
So what does that signal for the future? An aging workforce like that?
It means fewer new people coming in, a shrinking talent pipeline, and a greater chance of farms just stopping operations as owners retire with no one to take over. It's not just about labor supply in the usual sense.
It's about continuity.
It's about the very generational continuity of farming itself, a profound threat to the industry's future, food security, rural communities, everything.
And Canada. The numbers there are pretty stark, too, according to the Bovine article.
Yeah, they're facing a very real 5.4% dairy job vacancy rate right now. And the projection from their analysis is chilling. Canada could lose a staggering 50%, half of its farms, by 2030.
Half the farms in less than a decade.
That's an absolutely massive contraction. It fundamentally reshapes the agricultural fabric of a whole nation, makes the urgency, even globally, feel incredibly immediate and personal.
Australia, too.
Another stark example from the Bovines global data, 55% of their farmers are reportedly considering exiting the industry entirely.
55%.
Which is projected to lead to a 30-year production low. This isn't just a labor shortage. It's like a crisis of confidence, a mass exodus, a profound sustainability challenge within the farming community itself.
And New Zealand, usually seen as a powerhouse.
Even they're grappling with it. A critical staffing shortage estimated at 4,000 positions. And it's made worse by recent policy changes threatening their vital migrant worker population.
So connecting the dots globally.
It demonstrates unequivocally these aren't isolated incidents, not regional quirks. They are symptoms of a widespread systemic issue affecting major dairy nations everywhere.
Same underlying forces.
Seems like it. Whether it's demographics, economic conditions, volatile politics, they're converging everywhere to create this universal challenge.
Okay, so after painting that global picture, here's where the Bovine article gets really interesting, I think. It zooms right back in, focusing on Wisconsin, America's dairyland.
Right, using it as a case study.
Presenting it as this stark, on-the-ground, real-world example of this catastrophe brewing. It shows how this isn't just some abstract problem out there. It's playing out right now in one of the most iconic dairy states. What can we learn from what's happening there?
Well, the Bovines immigration analysis of Wisconsin it's a real wake-up call for anyone in the U.S. dairy industry. It reveals Wisconsin's dairy sector relies on a staggering 70% immigrant labor.
70%.
Including more than 10,000 undocumented workers doing essential, often really tough jobs that keep those farms running. This isn't just high reliance or, a convenient labor source.
Just deeper.
It's, as the article argues really powerfully, an existential dependence. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, quoted directly in the article, puts it bluntly, without them, the whole dairy industry would collapse overnight.
Collapse overnight, that's not hyperbole.
No, it illustrates it's not just about finding enough people to milk cows or feed calves. It's an existential threat to the very fabric of dairy production, far beyond simple labor dependency.
So this workforce, despite the precarious status,
is foundational to current output. And its vulnerability directly translates to widespread industry-wide instability. And yeah, the potential for a complete stop for thousands of farms.
Okay, so moving directly into the profound economic consequences here. The Bovines economic analysis really pushes back against that conventional wisdom, the kind that often downplays just how critical immigration is for dairy.
Right, it argues it's not just a preference.
Exactly. It argues powerfully with compelling data that employing immigrant labor isn't some mere preference or just a way to save costs. For many, many operations, it's a matter of sheer survival.
Getting milk out the door.
It's about necessity for continued operation, for getting milk from the cow to the consumer. And the costs of not having this labor force, they are truly staggering when you start adding them up.
And those numbers, they are, quite frankly, catastrophic when you quantify the potential impact of, say, eliminating immigrant labor entirely from the U.S. dairy sector.
The $32 billion loss. Yeah, the Bovine article outlines a potential $32.1 billion economic output loss across the entire U.S. economy if this workforce vanished.
That's massive, like an industry-specific recession.
Totally. Impacting communities way beyond the farm gate.
Why?
And the ripple effects.
Yeah.
Their analysis predicts over 200,000 job losses across the wider economy.
Beyond the farms themselves.
Right. Processors, truckers, feed suppliers, vets, equipment dealers, all those rural communities and businesses they support, that's a huge chunk of the ag economy just gone.
And for consumers, the projection there is alarming.
Almost unimaginable. A potential 90.4% spike in retail milk prices, pushing a gallon to $7.60.
$7.60 a gallon. Imagine the impact on demand.
Devastating. It would fundamentally change how people shop, likely cratering milk purchases, pushing people to alternatives, further destabilizing the whole industry.
And the article also highlights that specific threat of farm closures.
Yeah, 3,506 dairy farm closures, projected with even just a 50% reduction in immigrant labor. That really quantifies the immediate severe impact of even a partial disruption.
Yeah.
Turns an abstract problem into a very concrete threat to individual farms, family legacies.
But the financial hit, as the Bullvine article points out, goes even deeper than just that broad economic output number.
Right, those hidden biological costs.
Exactly. The devastating, often unseen biological costs of labor instability. It's not just about wages or lost output, it's about what that constant churn does to your cows.
And ultimately, your bottom line.
In ways you might not track directly on the balance sheet, but they accumulate. They add up to significant losses over time.
So the hidden cost of labor instability data box in the Bullvine. It paints a pretty grim picture of that operational toll.
It really does. The industry average turnover rate, it ranges from 30% up to maybe 38.8% annually. That's high.
Constant churn.
And this constant churn isn't just an HR headache, perpetual onboarding. It has direct, tangible, and profoundly negative impacts on farm efficiency, consistency of care, and crucially on animal welfare and health.
Consistency is key in dairy.
Absolutely. Think about the precision needed for milking routines, sticking to feeding schedules, that vigilant, experienced eye needed for catching health issues early. High turnover means a constant stream of new, often less experienced staff.
Which leads to mistakes.
Inevitably. Inconsistencies, errors, delayed responses, and that directly impacts your animal's well-being and their productivity.
And those biological costs, that's where this labor instability really hits hard, right?
Yeah. Directly
impacting herd performance.
Yeah, the Bullvine article breaks down specific measurable impacts linked directly to employee turnover, things like a 1.8% decrease in milk production across the herd.
That's milk check impact right there.
Definitely. Then there's a 1.6% increase in calf loss.
Fewer replacements coming through.
Affecting future productivity, and a 1.6% increase in cow death rates.
Direct loss of assets.
So can you maybe explain that direct link to profitability? Because for a dairy operation, this isn't just about, feeling good about your animals. It's dollars and cents leaving your pocket.
Absolutely. The Bullvine's analysis makes it painfully clear. Your labor instability is literally killing your livestock profitability.
Yeah.
When you have high turnover, you're constantly pouring resources into retraining new employees.
Only for many to leave soon after.
Exactly. And these new folks, naturally, often lack that deep experience, the nuanced understanding, the consistent adherence to protocols that your seasoned staff have.
Leading to milking errors.
Which can increase mastitis, reduce milk letdown, suboptimal feeding practices, and critically, delayed detection or improper handling of health issues.
So let's break down those percentages again. 1.8% less milk production.
Direct revenue hit, fewer pounds sold. Simple as that.
1.7% more calf loss.
Fewer replacements entering your milking string down the line. Impacts genetic progress, future productivity.
And 1.6% higher cow death rate.
Direct loss of productive assets, often high-value cows. Requires expensive replacements. Each of these percentages, though they sound small maybe,
they erode revenue and increase costs.
Directly, hitting your profitability hard, creating this compounding effect that can really cripple a farm over time. It's not just HR, it's an animal health and economic imperative.
And beyond the biological costs to the herd, there's that direct financial burden of just getting people in the door, only for them to potentially leave again.
Right, the recruitment cost itself.
The average recruitment cost, according to the Bullvine article, is a significant $4,425 per employee.
$4,000 just to hire someone.
So you connect that to a typical 200-cow dairy, which, given those high turnover rates we mentioned, that 38.8% annual churn, you could easily be looking at over $11,000 a year just in recruitment expenses.
$11,000 just to replace people.
Think about that. That's $11,000 not going towards feed or vital equipment upgrades or future growth, or your bottom line is just walking out the door to replace people who left. A treadmill of expense.
It's a truly significant financial drain. that, often gets overlooked or just absorbed into general costs when we talk about labor.
Absolutely. When you think that a mid-sized 200-cow dairy could be spending over $11,000 just on recruitment fees, covering ads, background checks, initial training, lost productivity of staff involved in hiring, it's clear this isn't minor.
That's substantial money.
Money that could be strategically invested in technologies or management practices that actually improve efficiency, boost profits, build long-term sustainability, instead of just plugging holes in a leaky bucket of turnover.
The Bullvine's numbers really hammer home that ignoring this instability isn't just inconvenient.
It's financially damaging, actively hindering your farm's ability to thrive.
Okay, so after laying all that out, the Bullvine article then shifts focus directly to the solution, automation.
But with a crucial reality check.
Right, it's not just buy robots, problem solved. Well, it points out that yes, a hypothetical 50% wage spike would add almost $1 per hundredweight to production costs.
Making robotics look cheaper on paper.
Making robotics seem inherently more cost-effective,
Yep.
But the reality, as they emphasize, is way more complex than just buying a shiny new machine and plugging it in.
There's more to it than the purchase price.
Definitely.
And what's really fascinating, maybe even counterintuitive here, is the Bullvine article's pivotal point about automation performance.
What drives success isn't just the hardware.
Exactly. It emphatically states that the success, the actual ROI of robotic milking systems, has almost nothing to do with the hardware you bought and everything to do with how you manage it.
That's a critical insight for anyone considering this.
Huge. It implies just investing a big chunk of capital in the latest tech isn't a guaranteed win. The intelligence, the diligence, the proactivity of your management practices, absolutely paramount.
And they illustrate this how?
By noting that farms with identical robot units, same brand, same model, can show dramatically different results, solely based on those day-to-day management practices. Herd flow, feeding strategies, data analysis, maintenance.
It's not just the capital cost, it's the human capital behind it.
Fundamentally about the human capital and management skill driving the technology.
And to really drive that point home, the article gives us that great real-world example. Dave Camel, the Wisconsin farmer.
Yeah, his story really brings the theory to life, shows how it plays out on an actual working dairy.
The Bullvine's robotic financing analysis of his success is a perfect, tangible illustration of this principle, right? He wasn't just buying tech, he was embracing a whole new way of managing.
Absolutely. After putting in 2 robotic units, he saw immediate, measurable results. 3 hours of daily labor savings, that's significant time back.
And his assessment was pretty clear.
Unequivocal, he called it the best investment I've ever made. But beyond just the financial return, he also reported big quality of life improvements, more family time, less grueling physical work, and immediate operational efficiency gains that paid off beyond just cutting labor hours.
So his experience highlights that automation transforms labor.
Rather than just eliminating it, it shifts the focus away from repetitive, often undesirable manual tasks toward more skilled analytical roles. Oversight, data interpretation, proactive animal health management.
Redefining the work.
Essentially redefining the type of work needed on the farm, making it potentially more appealing, more engaging, and ultimately more sustainable for a modern workforce.
Okay, let's look at the numbers. The verified automation ROI data for 2022-2025, and the Bullvine article puts concrete figures on this transformation, moves it from anecdote to hard data.
Right, the investment first. Typically $150,000 to $275,000 per robot. It's significant upfront capital, no doubt.
Not a small decision. But then you look at the annual labor savings. $32,000 to $45,000 per robot per year.
That's a powerful, tangible return. Recoups the investment relatively quickly.
And the direct milking labor reduction,
Oh.
a whopping 60%. That's not incremental. That's a fundamental, almost revolutionary shift in your labor needs, your operational structure.
And the benefits go way beyond just saving on labor costs. The Bullvine's research clearly shows it's also about boosting overall herd productivity and efficiency.
The milk yield increase.
They cite an average 8.66% increase in milk yield, with the very real potential for an astounding up to 28.5% increase.
20%.
With proper management and optimization. That's a massive jump in productivity from a single, well-managed investment.
Which speaks directly to that management piece again.
Absolutely. The raw potential is baked into the tech, but hitting that higher end. That requires skilled oversight, data-driven decisions, commitment to new protocols, making every cow count, optimizing every drop of milk.
And the payback period. The Bullvine says it gets dramatically faster under these current crisis conditions.
Yeah, that's a key point. From a typical 4-10 years under normal market circumstances, it shrinks to a remarkably quick 18-24 months under the intense pressures of the current labor crisis.
So can you maybe elaborate on how that drastic acceleration changes the whole investment calculation for farmers? Because, like the article implies, it really raises the question, can you afford not to automate now?
Absolutely. That acceleration of the payback period from maybe a decade down to less than 2 years under crisis conditions, it fundamentally alters the financial viability. Under normal conditions, a longer payback might make some farms hesitate. Capital lockup, perceived risk, other priorities. But when the labor crisis creates such a significant and immediate return on investment, it transforms automation from maybe a luxury upgrade or a long-term strategic play into an immediate, almost urgent necessity for operational survival and competitive growth.
And delaying isn't free either.
Not at all. The Bullvine's research indicates delaying robotic adoption isn't just missing out on potential gains. It actively costs mid-sized farms up to $160,600 per year in lost profit potential per optimized robot.
That's a huge opportunity cost.
It's actively losing a substantial amount of profit every single year you don't embrace this. And furthermore, the article highlights that the top-performing robotic setups can generate a staggering $500 per day difference in profitability compared to just average implementations.
Reinforcing a management aspect again.
Constantly. It's not just the machine. It's optimizing its potential through smart management, leveraging its capabilities. The message is clear. The cost of inaction now. It far outweighs the cost of adoption.
Okay, here's another one of those dangerous myths the Bullvine article tackles head-on with data. The simple idea that just pay more will magically fix your labor shortages.
It sounds logical on the surface, right? Supply and demand.
Seems straightforward. But the math, when you dig into the comprehensive data they present, it just doesn't work out.
No, the Bullvine's wage reality check for 2025 presents the hard, unvarnished math that really demolishes this myth.
What's the current wage situation?
They reveal the average farm worker wage is currently around $17.55 an hour, which is only 61% of non-farm wages in other sectors.
61%. That's a big gap.
Right off the bat, it tells you there's a significant systemic gap in pay-making ag work less attractive than other options. Now, dairy labor costs specifically, they make up a substantial 10-15% of total production costs for herds over 200 cows.
Translating to
An estimated range of $1.80 into $2.30 per hundredweight of milk. That's already a considerable chunk of your operational budget.
So to even start competing with other sectors, to bridge that 39% wage gap, attract domestic workers.
Yeah.
What bit of increase are we talking?
The Bullvine article suggests a minimum 50% increase in wages would be needed. 50%.
And what does that do to your cost of production?
Their analysis shows it would add nearly $1 per hundredweight to your cost of production.
$1 per hundredweight, just from wages.
That's a massive, almost unbearable hit to your bottom line, directly impacting your competitiveness, your profitability, your ability to compete globally.
So at that point,
Precisely. The Bullvine's rigorous analysis proves, pretty much beyond doubt, that at that point, when you're adding nearly $1 per hundredweight just to compete on wages, robotic milking systems become demonstrably, financially, operationally more cost-effective than trying to win a relentless, unwinnable wage competition.
the math just doesn't work for the wage-only strategy.
If you're adding $1 a sumpri butit to your costs just for labor, you're rapidly eroding any profit margins. You're entering a bidding war most dairy farms simply cannot sustain long-term. It completely demolishes the conventional wisdom that higher wages are the ultimate isolated fix.
It's short-term, unsustainable.
And ignores the deeper systemic issues, especially compared to other sectors vying for those same workers.
Now, what I think really sets the Bullvine article apart is that it doesn't just diagnose the problem and point to automation. It provides this comprehensive, really actionable strategic decision framework.
The 3 pillars.
Exactly. Based on what they call the 3 pillars, to fundamentally transform your whole operation. It's not just saying you're sick, it's handing you a detailed roadmap to recovery. And more than that, maybe to future dominance.
Okay, so pillar 1, labor-light operations. This is all about fundamentally restructuring your farm, right? Making it less dependent on a large, unpredictable, and increasingly expensive human workforce.
It suggests immediate actions, things you can do in the next 30 days. Very actionable.
First step, audit. You absolutely need to audit your current labor-intensive tasks. Where are the biggest drains on your workforce? Which areas are most vulnerable if you suddenly lose staff or just can't find replacements?
So it forces you to ask, where are my bottlenecks?
Exactly. Where are your current labor bottlenecks that are most susceptible to this crisis? Identifying those is the crucial first step toward finding targeted, high-impact automation solutions.
Then the Bullvine advises, based on their research, you model those ROI scenarios for automation under both normal conditions and these accelerated crisis conditions, emphasizing that dramatically shorter payback period we talked about.
And critically, research vendors know.
Right. Before crisis-driven demand really peaks and inflates pricing by, they estimate 15–25%. The article stresses timing here. Waiting will cost you in lost profit potential and will literally cost you more money for the exact same equipment later.
Be proactive, not reactive when everyone else is scrambling and paying more.
Exactly.
Okay, then for the next phase, the 12-month implementation, based on that verified performance data from their industry analysis, the Bullvine highlights key automation techs with proven returns.
Like AMS.
Automated milking systems, AMS, right at the forefront, offering that significant 60% labor reduction and a measurable 3–15% bump in milk production.
And automated feeding.
Automated feeding systems, yeah. Require an investment, maybe $75,000, $125,000, but can yield an impressive 35–45% annual ROI through precise feeding and labor savings.
It's sensors.
Wearable sensors. Cost around $150–200 per cow. Rapid 12–18-month payback. They provide indirect but substantial labor savings by improving herd health monitoring, reproductive management, reducing the need for constant manual checks.
These aren't theoretical anymore.
No, these are proven solutions. Clear, documented returns for producers looking to lighten that labor load.
Okay, pillar 2. The human capital revolution. This feels absolutely crucial because it reminds us, hey, technology isn't the whole story. It won't be a silver bullet on its own.
Right. The human element remains key.
And the Bullvine's human capital research really shows that often hidden, profound, real cost of cheap labor, which, when you factor in turnover, inefficiency, inconsistency, it isn't cheap at all. This pillar is about making your farm a place people want to work.
This pillar is, like you said, essential because automation addresses labor numbers, but the quality of your remaining human workforce and critically how you manage and invest in them is equally vital for long-term success.
Prioritizing cheap labor backfires.
The Bullvine research shows how it can lead to far greater, often unseen costs. They provide a really compelling case study. A Wisconsin operation that truly gets this.
The one with the housing investment.
Yeah. This farm saw its employee turnover plummet from a challenging 7% down to less than 1% after making a significant investment in quality employee housing.
Wow, from 7% to under 1%.
And it wasn't just providing shelter, it was about showing value. Result, they actually created a waiting list for employment at their farm.
A waiting list, that's powerful proof.
It's a testament to how strategically investing in your people, their well-being, their stability, can yield dramatic improvements in retention and create a more stable, committed team.
And the proven ROI of investing in people, according to the Bullvine article, is really substantial. It's multifaceted.
Like structured onboarding seems like an extra step, maybe.
But it can lead to a remarkable 50% cut in training time for new hires and a significant 60–70% productivity boost early on.
Quality housing, as we just heard, dramatic retention improvements, turns that revolving door into a stable team.
And offering clear career pathways, opportunities for growth.
Makes employees an astonishing 69% more likely to stay with you for 3 years or more. That's the kind of long-term retention, that dedication we literally dream of in this industry.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, offering a future, investing in your team, it fundamentally changes commitment.
Absolutely. When employees see a path for growth, experience better living conditions, feel genuinely valued, they're far more likely to stay, reducing those huge hidden costs of turnover. We talked about recruitment fees, biological impacts, lost productivity.
And employee development programs overall.
The Bullvine highlights their significant total ROI, around 263,096 top dorsers. That includes efficiency gains, reduced errors, better morale, stronger farm culture. It's not just a cost center, it's a strategic investment paying substantial dividends in productivity, retention, and the farm's overall long-term performance and sustainability.
Okay, the third and final pillar from the Bullvine article. This one suggests that while your competitors are struggling, maybe even drowning under the weight of rising labor costs and instability, you can strategically position yourself in premium markets.
Leveraging your new efficiencies.
Exactly. Using your newfound efficiencies and that stable, skilled workforce not just to survive, but to gain a significant market advantage.
That's right. Connecting this to the broader strategic landscape, the article emphasizes that those escalating labor expenses burdening many farms, they compound the difficulties, and they make premium market positioning absolutely essential.
Why essential?
For funding both the necessary automation and these progressive employee programs, it creates this virtuous cycle.
How so?
Automation cuts operational costs, frees up capital. That capital can then be reinvested smartly into employee well-being, training, development, further boosting efficiency, improving retention.
Which then enables...
This enhanced operational stability and quality then enables your farm to command higher prices in premium markets, whether that's organic, specialty cheeses, direct-to-consumer, whatever fits, creating a stronger, more resilient business model that consistently outmaneuvers competitors still stuck with high, unpredictable labor costs and a struggling workforce.
It's about building a future-proof operation.
Exactly.
Now, to really hammer home the consequences of these choices, the Bovine article provides that powerful table, visually representing the stakes over 5 years. It's a stark, almost unvarnished comparison of the different paths you could take, and they're very real, very different outcomes.
Yeah, that table is incredibly effective.
Yeah.
Let's walk through each scenario the Bovine lays out.
Okay, first, status quo, the path of inaction. Just maintain your current model. The Bovine projects you're looking at, over $55,000 in recruitment costs alone over 5 years.
Plus the production hit.
On top of that, a compounding Megas 1.8% annual impact on milk production due to that labor instability, inefficiency. The total financial impact over 5 years. A devastating notice, $200,000 or more in losses.
And your competitive position.
Rapidly declining, losing ground year after year. This is the path of slow, painful, almost inevitable erosion.
Okay, next, the wage-only strategy. Trying to just pay more. Here, the Bovine projects that minimum 50% wage increase needed just to compete.
Does it help production much?
The production impact, despite higher wages, is shown as only minimal improvement, if any, because the fundamental issues of labor availability, desirability, they aren't really addressed.
And the financial impact.
Still a significant managed $150,000 over 5 years, and your competitive position is, at best, only temporarily stable. Like we discussed, it's short-sighted, financially untenable for most. Doesn't solve the core problem, just papers over it with unsustainable costs.
Then partial automation, a step in the right direction.
This approach sees a projected 30% cut in labor needs due to implementing some automation, leading to an average plus 8.66% increase in milk production from efficiency gains.
And the finances.
Critically, this translates to a positive total financial impact over 5 years, plus $100,000. Your competitive position becomes moderately competitive. You can hold your own.
Definitely better, but still short of the full potential.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final scenario, full transformation. This is where the Bovine article really shows the compounding power of strategic comprehensive action.
What are the projections here?
A projected 60% reduction in labor, a significant plus 15-20% increase in milk production thanks to integrated automation and optimized management, and a staggering positive total financial impact of over plus $300,000.
$300,000 plus. That's market leadership territory.
That's the path that demonstrably leads to market leadership and long-term sustainability. This powerful table, meticulously put together by the Bovine, it doesn't just illustrate the huge financial consequences of delaying transformation.
It shows the upside.
It vividly highlights the immense upside, the vast opportunities that come from strategic adaptation. It's not just numbers, it's a very clear choice laid out right in front of you of the future you want to build for your farm.
And recognizing the urgency, the need for action now, the Bovine article doesn't just leave it at theory. It gives you a practical, month-long action plan to actually kickstart this critical transformation.
Not just absorbing info, but putting it into action.
Exactly. Starting right now for your operations benefit.
Yeah.
So, week 1, crisis assessment.
First step, calculate your true labor costs.
And true cost means everything, right? Not just wages, but the hidden costs of turnover, lost production from instability, those subtle but devastating biological impacts we discussed.
It's a real number.
That model 3 distinct scenarios for your specific operation. Your current state, a hypothetical 50% labor reduction via automation, and a full automation scenario. Baseline, 2 targets.
And crucially, research financing options now.
Before crisis, demand peaks and drives up equipment prices 15-25%. That proactive financial planning is key.
Okay. Week 2, strategic planning. The Bovine strongly recommends getting out there. Visit at least 3 automated operations in your region. Get real-world, on-the-ground insights.
See in action, talk to owners.
Observe their workflows. Then interview farmers who specifically installed automation between 2022-2025. Get fresh, recent perspectives on their actual experiences, challenges, successes. That direct farmer-to-farmer knowledge, invaluable.
And calculate your own payback periods.
Compare the expedited 18-24 months under crisis conditions versus the longer 4-10 years under normal times. That comparison highlights the urgency, the financial imperative of acting now.
Moving into week 3. Financial modeling. This is where you dig into those innovative financing models that can really lower the upfront hurdle.
Like 0% manufacturer deals.
Yeah, look into those. Are great for preserving capital, various leasing options, flexibility, managed cash flow, and even pay-per-liter programs, tying payments directly to production. Can you elaborate a bit more on those options? They sound quite flexible, potentially accessible even for farms facing capital constraints.
Certainly. The Bullvine highlights these because they are designed to significantly lower the barrier to entry for high-value automation, making it more attainable for more farms.
So 0% deals.
Let you acquire equipment without that immediate interest burden. Crucial for working capital in tight markets.
Leasing.
Offers incredible flexibility. Can be structured as operational expenses, not big capital outlays. Potential tax advantages. Predictable monthly costs.
And pay-per-liter.
Particularly interesting, ties the tech cost directly to your actual milk production, creates a built-in alignment between output and payments. Very reassuring. These options are explicitly designed to make high-value automation accessible even in tough economic times, democratizing access, really.
Also in week 3, that infrastructure assessment.
Absolutely critical. Rigorously assess your farm's readiness, internet connectivity, power supply, barn layout. Can they support the new systems?
And develop a timeline.
A realistic implementation timeline. AMS often 6 to 8 months, planning to full operation. Automated feeding, quicker, maybe 3-4 months. Planning these practicalities now avoids costly delays later.
And then, week 4, implementation decision. By now, you've got the data, the insights, time to make an informed, strategic choice.
Choose the highest impact, fastest payback automation investment for your operation, the one offering the most immediate relief, quickest return.
Lock in vendors.
Establish robust vendor partnerships before crisis demand escalates costs and extends lead times, a point the Bullvine stresses repeatedly.
And finally, crucially, create employee transition and retraining programs.
Knowing full competency with new automated systems usually takes about 120 days. It's about bringing your team along on this journey.
This last point, the employee transition and retraining, it feels really critical.
Absolutely. The Bullvine emphasizes that technology adoption also means investing in new skills for your existing workforce. It's not just about replacing people.
It's transforming roles.
Fundamentally, your existing employees, with their invaluable farm knowledge, their animal sense, they need training to become skilled robot operators, automation technicians, maybe data analysts, managing the new systems, interpreting all that new data.
Creating different kinds of jobs.
This shift creates roles that are often more appealing, more intellectually stimulating, ultimately more sustainable for a modern workforce. Replacing those hard-to-fill, often undesirable manual jobs with careers people can value, grow into, it's a true human capital revolution alongside the tech revolution. #outro.
So we've taken a really deep dive into this Bullvine article, Dairy's Labor Crisis, Automate or Perish. And the message that comes through from their meticulous analysis, it's not just clear, it feels urgent. And it's incredibly actionable for anyone serious about the future of their dairy operation.
Yeah, that opening statistic from the Bullvine article remains pivotal, almost haunting, really. While 5,000 dairy jobs will regrettably go unfilled by 2030, the smart, forward-thinking operators, they aren't just adapting.
But you're using the transformation.
Actively using this profound transformation to, frankly, eliminate competition and strategically dominate market share. The harsh reality, illuminated by the Bullvine's detailed analysis, is stark. More than 2/3 of the country's 9.36 million dairy cows, currently milked by immigrant workers.
And policy uncertainty threatens that foundation.
Directly. We're talking about a potential $32.1 billion in economic losses if that vital workforce disappears. A scenario that would just redefine the entire industry.
So your strategic choice here, it feels pivotal. Maybe the most critical decision your operation faces in the next few years.
Absolutely.
The labor shortage isn't just your problem to passively endure or complain about. It is quite literally your unparalleled opportunity to seize.
Every farm that closes.
Every farm that tragically closes its doors because of insurmountable labor challenges removes a competitor from the market. Conversely, every operation that successfully strategically automates gains market share, reshaping the competitive landscape in real time, positioning themselves for a future of growth and stability.
The Bullvine article delivers that powerful analogy, too, providing historical context for this huge shift.
The tie stall moment.
This current labor crisis, they argue, is today's tie stall to freestall moment. Think back to the 80s. Dairy farmers faced that monumental, probably terrifying decision. Stick with traditional, labor-intensive tie stalls or invest heavily in new freestall housing.
Huge capital outlay. Big learning curve.
A complete, unsettling shift in daily operations. But those who embraced it adapted early to freestalls. They gained competitive advantages that lasted for decades, set them up for growth, efficiency, sustained profits.
And those who waited?
They often struggled to catch up, got overwhelmed by competitor efficiencies, or sadly just didn't survive. This current moment in dairy feels just as pivotal, just as defining.
So here's your immediate next step, pulled straight from the Bullvine article's actionable roadmap. Calculate with precision. What would your operation truly look like with those verified automation improvements?
Model the impact.
Model the impact of a proven 60% labor reduction from robotics. That measurable 8.66% higher milk yield on average. And that staggering $160,600 annual profit potential that can be realized per optimized robot.
And then, armed with that clear projection, you have to ask yourself that challenging, maybe provocative question.
Are you building the farm that thrives?
Are you actively building the farm that thrives and dominates in that coming reality? Or are you passively letting your operation become a historical footnote, a casualty of a crisis you failed to address head-on?
Because the winners won't be the ones who solve the shortage.
The farms that will truly dominate the North American dairy landscape by 2030, they won't be the ones that somehow solved the labor shortage through traditional means. They'll be the ones that made the labor shortage irrelevant to their success through strategic technology adoption and that profound workforce transformation.
Because in this industry, adaptation isn't just about survival anymore.
It's fundamentally about who defines and leads the future of North American dairy farming.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Bullvine Podcast. If this conversation challenged your thinking about dairy's future, and I hope it did, then we've done our job. Remember, the farms that will write the success stories of 2030 aren't the ones solving the labor shortage. They're the ones making it irrelevant to their operations through strategic adaptation. You can find the full article, complete with all the data and case studies we discussed today, at www.thebullvine.com. While you're there, dive into our archive of industry-challenging content that cuts through the noise and gives you the intelligence you need to stay ahead. Follow us on social media at The Bullvine for daily insights that question conventional wisdom and reveal opportunities others miss. And if today's episode sparked some ideas or challenged your assumptions, share it with someone in your network who needs to hear this message. The transformation is happening with or without you. The only question is which side of the consolidation wave you'll be on when the dust settles. Until next time, this is the Bullvine reminding you that in this industry, adaptation isn't just about survival anymore. It's about who gets to define the future of dairy farming. Thanks for listening to the Bullvine Podcast, where fearless journalism meets actionable intelligence.